What's up, it's Cinema Shogun here, and chances are you have already seen the headlines today. Russian jet collides with U.S. drone over the Black Sea. Russian fighter jet crashes into U.S. drone in international airspace. But you see, those headlines are kind of misleading. Don't get me wrong, they're kind of telling the truth, but they're only telling the half truth. When you read those headlines, you would kind of assume, or a large portion of our society would assume that, hey, this must have been an accident. Oh, tragic, a fighter jet collides with a drone, oh my God. And you would think, and I wouldn't blame people for thinking this, but when you read that headline or you're skimming through the news and you see that headline, automatically you wouldn't think that you would kind of think that this is an accident. But in reality, this is no accident. The headlines should say that Russian fighter jets took down a U.S. drone over the Black Sea. That's what the headlines should say. And now with this, which in my opinion is an escalation to what's already going on. And make no mistake about it, we're already at war with Russia. We, and by we, I literally mean me and you, we're funding the war in Ukraine. You can't say that we are not at war with Russia when we're sending billions upon billions of dollars into Ukraine and sending them military equipment, tanks, you name it. We're at war with Russia already. But see, the situation like what happened today with the Russian fighter jets and the drone, that's taking us one step closer to a full-scale conflict. I mean, like boots on the ground in Ukraine, boots on the ground in this type of conflict. You know what I mean? Like, we're just going to keep funding. I mean, this is inching us one step closer to this being a direct conflict as opposed to like a proxy war or something of that nature. But I want to get into the details of what actually happened here, because this was no accident. These two aircraft didn't necessarily collide. You know, like the Russian fighter jet purposely clipped the drone so the drone would crash and spiral out of control. The fighter jet is perfectly fine. It didn't crash. It didn't collide. It purposely kind of nudged the wing a little bit to take this craft out after purposely like dumping gasoline on it and all types of stuff. So let's go ahead and dive into the details. The State Department has summoned Anatoly Antonov, Russia's ambassador to the U.S., to voice protest after a Russian fighter jet collided with and destroyed an American Reaper drone over the Black Sea. U.S. officials said the MQ-9 surveillance drone was downed early on Tuesday, following an unsafe and unprofessional intercept in international airspace by two Russian Su-27 fighter jets. Pentagon officials said the Russian fighters harassed the drone by dumping fuel on it and flying in front of it before one Su-27 clipped the propeller of the $32 million drone, forcing it to down over the Black Sea in a total loss of the unmanned aircraft. The incident demonstrates a lack of competence in addition to being unsafe and unprofessional, said Pentagon Press Secretary Air Force Bridge General Pat Ryder in a press briefing. In a statement, Russia's defense ministry denied colliding with the U.S. drone, saying the American aircraft went into uncontrolled flight due to sharp maneuvering. The incident happened in international airspace, but not far from the battles raging on the front lines of the war in Ukraine, amid Russia's ongoing invasion of the country. President Joe Biden has been briefed on the incident, said White House National Security spokesperson John Kirby, who slammed Russia's actions as reckless and dangerous. Russia's defense ministry claimed the U.S. drone was flying towards its airspace with its transponder turned off, and the Russian fighters were dispatched to investigate. Russian fighters did not use airborne weapons and did not come in contact with the American drone, says the Russian ministry. Due to sharp maneuvering, the American drone went into uncontrolled flight with a loss of altitude and collided with the water surface. The Russian ambassador, Antonov, had been summoned to discuss the incident, said State Department spokesperson Ned Price, calling it a brazen violation of international law. Kirby, the White House spokesperson, said the State Department will be speaking directly with their Russian counterparts and expressing our concerns over this unsafe and unprofessional intercept. If the message is that they want to deter or dissuade us from flying and operating in international airspace over the Black Sea, then that message will fail, said Kirby. We do not need to have some sort of check-in with the Russians before we fly in international airspace. There's no requirement to do so. There's no requirement to do that, nor do we do it. While the United States is not sailing warships in the Black Sea, it has routinely been flying surveillance aircraft in and around the area. Our MQ-9 aircraft was conducting routine operations in international airspace when it was intercepted and hit by a Russian aircraft, resulting in a crash and complete loss of the MQ-9, said U.S. Air Force General James Heckler, who oversees the U.S. Air Force in the region. In fact, this unsafe and unprofessional act by the Russians nearly caused both aircrafts to crash, added Hecker. The general went on to vow that the U.S. and allied aircraft will continue to operate in international airspace, and we call on the Russians to conduct themselves professionally and safely. European Command said in a statement the incident follows a pattern of dangerous actions by Russian pilots over international airspace, including the Black Sea. These aggressive actions by Russian aircrew are dangerous and could lead to miscalculation and unintended escalation, the statement said. The mid-air collision between a U.S.-made MQ-9 Reaper and a Russian Su-27 fighter jet occurred at 7:03 a.m. Analysts suggested the Russians may have been trying to down the smaller unmanned aircraft in such a way that would allow them to recover its data. General Ryder, the Pentagon spokesperson, said the incident occurred over international waters and well clear of Ukraine after the jets had flown in the vicinity of the drone for 30 to 40 minutes. There did not appear to be any communications between the aircraft before the collision. The MQ-9 is capable of carrying munitions, but Ryder declined to comment on whether it was armed or the specifics of its mission, saying only that the drone is designed for intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. Ryder has declined to identify the base from which the destroyed MQ-9 had launched. The U.S. has MQ-9s forward deployed to several NATO allied bases in Europe, including in Italy, Poland, Romania, and Greece. U.S. officials said that neither the U.S. nor Russia had recovered the destroyed drone as of Tuesday night. The U.S. did not have military vessels in the Black Sea at the time. So, one of my takeaways here is they're trying to downplay this, acting like it's the incompetence of the Russian fighter pilots, the incompetence of them led to this event. No, it was not incompetence. They successfully came and did what they came to do. They came to take that drone out, and they did. Or at least that's what it looks like now. Russia, on one hand, they're claiming that, hey, we didn't do any of this. That we were simply flying around the drone, and the drone started trying to do crazy maneuvers to get away from us, and it eventually crashed. That's Russia's story, basically, in a nutshell. That they were flying alongside this drone. You know, they got, their radar showed that the drone was flying towards their area. They scrambled their fighter jets, and the drone started flying erratically, I guess trying to evade them, and crashed. America is saying that the incompetence of the Russian pilots led them to crash into the drone. So I guess it's up to you. What do you decide to believe? A lot of people have trouble believing anything in today's world, and I understand why. But of course, we're getting two very different stories. But regardless of who's telling the truth or not, this still leads us to the same destination, which is a full-scale military conflict with Russia in the near future. I mean, if things don't change drastically, we're most definitely headed there. And one question I wonder is, when we look at stories like this, it makes me worry and it makes me wonder, because I know, and come on, you all know it, that America and our government and our mainstream media, they have been trying to hype up this Ukraine situation. And I'm someone who paid close attention to that situation. I was talking about Russia invading Ukraine for months and weeks on end before they did. I was reporting on the troop buildup on the border of Ukraine, all of that stuff. You can go back on my channel. I was talking about that well before the mainstream media took the story and ran with it and started pumping out all of this crazy propaganda. But I think it's easy for us to tell that they have been trying desperately to get us to not only sympathize with the war in Ukraine, but to support the war in Ukraine. And I think they're trying to lead us to a path where some of the citizens of the United States will support us going to war with Russia to defend Ukraine in the name of freedom and whatever the hell they try to tell people. So I wonder, in situations like this, is the U.S. capable, and we know they are, of faking events like this and staging events like this to push us further into this full-scale conflict? Because, don't get me wrong, you would think that everyone wants peace. And that's what people say. Like the White House tells us they want peace, and our government says they want peace. They don't want this, they don't want that. But they're not making the necessary moves for us to find a peaceful resolution to all of this. They're making the necessary moves to mount a new full-scale war. You know, they're making moves towards war, not away from it. So when I look at situations like this, I can't help but wonder, is this Russia further provoking us? Because I don't put that past them at all. I'm not on Russia's side in this either. Or is this our own country doing things in order to egg us on to be more willing and more accepting of a full-scale conflict with Russia? That's what I wonder. But like I said, when it comes to this story and when it comes to any news story, you got to dive deeper than the headlines. They know that people don't have a lot of time. So I would say the way the majority of people digest their news, they read the headline and that's their news. That simple. They read the headline, scroll down another headline. They don't dive into the articles. They don't dive into the information. And that's how they've been able to downplay a lot of stuff. And that's how they put out a lot of stuff right in our faces. And we're so distracted that we don't see it. So they've been labeling this, or at least some media outlets have been labeling this as a crash or a collision. But no, if they're telling the truth, this isn't a crash or a collision. No, Russia has, once again, stomped all over us in a way. You know, mind you, a couple of weeks ago, we got the Chinese spy balloon flying over America. And now, if we were to believe them, we got Russia downing drones in international airspace. Mind you, I'm sure we were there doing shady stuff to begin with. Don't put that past America. But still, we have countries that feel comfortable doing things to our country that they wouldn't have felt comfortable doing years back. You know what I mean? So you can see that these countries are growing more confident. They're growing more brazen. They're growing more willing to do things to us that they would have never done before. You know what I mean? Because I feel like they think we're weak right now. And I understand why they think that. But the reality is, if we were to believe what they said, these Russian jets were flying around this drone for 30 or 40 minutes. They were literally flying over it and just dumping their fuel all over the drone, just to humiliate us in a way, like a humiliation tactic. Dumping fuel all over the drone, and then eventually they clip it and it crashes and they go about their day, and I don't know what we're going to do about it, if anything. But hey, at the end of the day, we're one step closer to the inevitable. But let me know your thoughts about this down in the comments below. While you're down there, hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, ring that notification bell, and I'll talk to you all in the next video.